Happy Sunday, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, and welcome to another edition of On the Front Lines with Christie Hutcherson. I'm very excited about our guest today. He is a national hero. He is somebody who has stood up for freedom and liberty. None other than Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, previous national security advisor to President Donald J. Trump. We're going to really get into this interview because there's going to be a lot of information and content that's going to be addressed here. We're going to try to answer a lot of your questions on the national and domestic security front, on China, South and Central America, and on 5G warfare. But all of this is made possible by Brighteon TV. So thank you so much, Brighteon TV, for being a beacon of light and hope and truth in a, quite frankly, a dark media world. Please tune in every Sunday, 1 to 2 p.m. on the Front Lines with Christie Hutcherson. Also support this TV program by going to brighteonstore.com and using promo code WFFA. Gonna just touch on a couple sponsors really quick, but then I just want to get into the interview with General Michael Flynn. I'm almost all the time. Where do we go? What do we do? How do we prepare? Well, we have to stop defunding our enemies, which, by the way, is through your wallets. And that is some of these woke corporations. So patriotmobile.com/WFFA/WFFA. It is where the patriots go and the freedom fighters go to make their phone calls. Also, please go to Patriot Switch. And use promo code again, WFFA. If you want to defund Johnson & Johnson, which is one of the most offenders, they're part of the World Economic Forum, they're part of the problem. We need to do this through our wallets. Our voice and our wallets matter. Grassroots, that's where it counts. You make the impact and you make the difference. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in somebody who I've gotten to know pretty well in the last 2.5 years. Been blessed and privileged to speak on numerous stages with this national hero, and that is Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'll tell you, just because I know how important sponsors are, I actually switched over to Patriot Mobile a while back, probably probably less than a year ago. But it was a seamless transition. And when I learned about them, I was like, wow, I know I got to do this. I've got to do this. And I dug in. I actually went to a conference, a small conference in Dallas, which is where their headquarters is. So whatever the promotion code is, I guess it's WFFA, right? Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com, WFFA. My entire family, my business, switched over to Patriot Mobile, and I will never look back. They have been superb. So, and they're also, part of this is this ability to have this information warfare that we are a part of. And that was one of the reasons why I switched over, because Patriot Mobile provides a platform, a service, as we're all riding the waves of the internet, right? Riding the waves of our phones and how we communicate and how we fight back, right? How we fight back within the world of information and social media is so important. And so I just figured I'd mention that because I didn't realize that you guys or that your show was a Patriot Mobile fan. So I'm so glad that you are. So people need to seriously think about it. I'm telling you, put that promotion code down there, WFFA, and you will be so satisfied with the quality of service that Patriot Mobile gives you, not just to sell a product, but because of the war that we're involved in. This is a very strong American sort of made product, right? And
yeah, it is. Glenn's story is a personal friend, and I'm going to tell you, he's just a great guy too. And I love their 4 pillars, by the way, not to, but they have incredible 4 pillars. They have a great moral compass. They support our military. They support our first responders. They're pro-life. They're just an incredible organization.
This is what this show is about today. This is what we're going to talk about here. We're going to dive in here in a little bit, but when we talk about pro-America, pro-family, pro-small business, pro-life, pro-national security. I mean, we have a group of people that are running our country right now, and they're running it into the ground. And this is not because they're incompetent, Christie. This is because this is a long time in coming plan. And the original strategy was 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton, and you and I would have never met. We'd have never had the Reawaken America tour. We'd have never done the things that we're doing right now. The last, because just like you said prior to bringing me on, like you've gotten to know me over the last couple of years, really only the last really two and a half years. So many relationships have spawned out of the need for people to wake up and leaders, particularly leaders, to come together. And we've done that. I think we've done that in a lot of ways where just different places where we've met either on the border or in conferences in various cities around the country to get people to understand this is what we're up against. This is not an incompetent administration that is in charge right now. This is a very intentional administration. And I always will tell people to remind everybody, if you remember what Joe Biden's bumper sticker was coming into the 2020 campaign, right? And Trump's is "Make America Great Again." Well, Joe Biden's was "Build Back Better." Okay, "Build Back Better," which was not a Joe Biden slogan that he made up. That because you say, well, it's interesting, right? "Build Back Better" is a slogan that comes out of the European Union, comes out of the globalist community. It's used over in Europe quite a bit, and in different ways, the way that they describe it. And there's actually some really good videos on the internet to go after that kind of a slogan. But the idea of "Build Back Better," and now that they missed their opportunity because a guy like Trump was able to get into the White House and he disrupted their plans, right? He did. And so now what they're talking about with this "Build Back Better" idea, and it's an idea. It's almost like talk about a cult. People call us a cult. Like Trump has these bullshit. It's not a cult. "Build Back Better" is an intentional design to destroy something and then build it back better in the image that they want. And who are they? They are this globalist elite that exists in the likes of the World Economic Forum. It exists in the likes of the George Soroses of the world, Bill Gates, the Clinton Foundation, right? The Clinton Foundation, run by Hillary Clinton, is still, they're in that pointy end of the spear of driving the United States of America into the ground. And then you also have people like Barack Obama, who never left Washington, D.C. So all of these sort of strategic data points that I just outlined, they are what are causing our country to feel, and all of us to feel like, Jesus, I mean, can this get any worse? Because it's really bad right now. It's really bad. So when we talk about what is happening, because you and I have had lots of conversations over the last couple of years, and we've been part of conversations where we've really laid out with great clarity, particularly you on the border. That's kind of how you and I kind of came, into meeting with each other. It was really here I saw this woman, with this, you're down there on the border with really, I mean, in an incredible location. And it was like you're ready to go to, basically fight the border war, right? Because we have a border war. This is not we've thrown phrases like drug war and illegal immigration. This is an invasion of our country. It's been going on for a long time. We now know that we have upwards of 125 to 170 different countries that have infiltrated or attacked or assaulted, whatever military word you want to use, into our country. I've been paying very close attention to it. And I would tell you over the last, probably the last 90 days, if not the last 6 months, even more so, I am very concerned about military-age men of Chinese suasion. Okay, so Chinese military-age men coming through. You got Michael Yan down there. If anybody follow Michael Yan and his reporting on the border. In fact, he may be back down on the border now. I know he's getting ready to do a traipse from Eagle Pass all the way to Tijuana. So and along the border, they're going to do some interesting things. These people that are reporting down there, they're reporting on not just the type of people that are coming across our border and coming up. And again, a lot of military age men. And you kind of say, when they get here, where do they go? And we're just sort of allowing them to come in here. Most people don't know, because the last couple of times I was down there, different places on the border, particularly in Texas, we went up to one site where they were handing out to individuals, and I don't have a good example here, but let's just say they were giving them like a manila envelope, and in the manila envelope, an 8x11 manila envelope, was a credit card, a list of nonprofits that they could go and get help from, and those in the list of nonprofits was in different languages. So primarily it was Hispanic, but there was other languages on this. And I'm like, Jesus, look at the effort that we're going to allow illegals to come into our country, and there was the credit card, I think, had upwards of like $500, right? And then what they had is in some cases, they gave them tickets if they knew exactly where they wanted to go. Like they wanted to go to St. Louis, Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, Providence, Rhode Island, which is my part of where I kind of grew up with, in that part of the world. And I'm thinking, what the hell, if somebody coming in through Eagle Pass or coming in through, Juarez or one of these areas, or even further over to the west, even, into California, why are they going up into these parts? And why are we allowing this to happen, right? And then never mind the horrific child trafficking, which of course Sound of Freedom is really bringing a lot of attention to. But this, because we don't even have any clue whatever the number is, Christie. It's like 80,000 children that we've lost control of within our own, who the United States of America had custody of, responsibility for, and we turn them over to various agencies and activities and departments, and now they're missing, and you say to yourself, what the hell is going on here? So all that said, because I want to also cover a couple of things that are happening overseas in Europe. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in places like China and the Pacific, because all of these are coming together. All of this stuff is coming together, and so the invasion of our country is an invasion, and the consequences are we have people who are being killed in action. We have people who are being wounded in action, just like on the battlefield. When we're talking about, and I think we've been using the number over 100,000 deaths from fentanyl, right? I mean, I think we were saying that, you and I were talking about that a year ago. So how many literally, and I say this very specifically, how many people need to be killed in action on the streets of America by Chinese-produced fentanyl, Chinese-produced and Mexican-introduced fentanyl? How many have to be killed in action? How many others have to be wounded in action and their lives completely changed before we do something about it? And
General Flynn, I was really frustrated because about last March, I was invited to the Capitol in Phoenix, Arizona, to brief Governor Ducey's office. At that meeting, there was like 47 people in that private meeting with me and my team. And it was a 2.5-hour briefing. And I was briefing them on a lot of intel and information that we have gathered on the border, because I've been on the border for over 3 years. Yeah. And what was interesting is I brought up the fentanyl, and I had a little packet of Sweet and Low, and I had it in front of them. There was like 27 sheriffs in the room. It was the Attorney General of Arizona and others, some Sonny Borelli and, the appropriations, etc. And I said, I want you to take that packet of Sweet and Low, and I want you to pour it in your hand, in the palm of your hand. That particular amount of fentanyl is enough to kill everybody in the Capitol right here in Phoenix. Now, imagine that in the hands of terrorists that we know. We have terrorist cells, known terrorist cells that have literally embedded themselves and emboldened themselves throughout the United States of America, strategically located. And, you couple the fentanyl with China, who has a clear intent to destroy America. Then you look at, for example, in Montana to California, the train derailed this rail car that went missing with over 25,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate. You couple that with the terrorist possible activity, and you're going to see an uptick, I believe, of soft targets being hit. I think that's going to be one of the trigger points. I always say there's a trigger point which equals an action, whether it's good or evil. So we're going to have, I believe, leading up to, I call it the nuclear option. So when they know that, their game's up, possibly, there's going to be multiple chaos events, I believe, that could possibly usher in martial law. Then, like you said, we've been getting intel for the last 2 years, northern border infiltration as well. I can tell you right now in Michigan and some other states where we've personally identified these military style camps. We can't get behind the walls of those because they're fortified. And they were private sector property. For example, in Michigan, out about 30 minutes outside of Alma, where they housed UACs. And then they've turned this at-risk boys youth camp. The administration purchased this and they turned it into a heavily fortified military style camp with heavily armed guards, private sector and military sector. And so you've got unaccompanied young adults, males being brought into these facilities for what purpose, what reason? And then you look along the border in Eagle Pass, where I just was, and I uncovered and broke the story. Again, it's an intake outtake facility, but it's military style. The way that they set the camp up, the way they strategically place the tents so you can't see what's going on inside of them is very important, because when you start seeing things like this pop up, you have to start connecting the dots. One of the most interesting thing, and I really want to kind of get your thought on this. I just got back from Central, and I was down in Central and South America. And I've been looking at a lot of intel and information on a couple things. May of 23 of this year, for the first time, I think in 9 years, we had South American leaders meeting in Brazil. And there's a lot of discussions that are going on. And Maduro was there, the Venezuelan president. In March of this year, Maduro flew over to Iran to solidify their relations together with the new incoming Iranian president, Ayatollah. And so when you look at the growing influence between Venezuela, China, and Iran, specifically, even last summer, there was a very suspicious plane. We already know what was on that plane. It was cyber intelligence equipment, 14 Venezuelans who were cyber operatives. They landed in Mexico City, by the way, met with cartels, and then went to Caracas, Venezuela, and then eventually ended up in South America. We know for a fact that individuals that are flying, Iran's Revolutionary Guard and some of the Qud forces are flying from Tehran into Venezuela. And then in turn, the Venezuelan government is giving these Iranians, these terrorists, passports and documentation saying that they're Venezuelan citizens. And we know that they're absorbing into some of these caravans and coming over here. I don't believe it's a coincidence that you're starting to see a massive, for the last, 8-9 months, an uptick of Venezuelans, young single adult males. Well, really, we're not vetting these individuals. There's no way to do this. And so I am very concerned. Not only do we have enemies at the borders, but because of the administration of this policies, we are allowing terrorist cells to just keep fortifying themselves. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So first of all, you know what you just laid out is very clear, and the administration, this administration, the fake news, corporate woke, Marxist, left-leaning, disgusting, media is going to call you out and say, this woman's out of her mind. She's crazy. She's a conspiracy theorist, and they don't have a clue what they're saying. They are just going to say it because what we are in the middle of is we're in the middle of a war of distractions. Okay. And this whole thing, and we talk about this 5th generation warfare stuff, but we are in the midst of so many different things that are occurring. And yet what are we focused on? So if you turn on the news, if you watch a major media outlet, and I'm not talking about cable news, I'm not talking about the Fox or CNN or MSNBC, I'm really talking about ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's the MSM. That's the mainstream media. When you turn on those organizations, those networks, they're going to talk about how we have to win the war against Russia. Right? They're going to talk. They're not going to beat up on China that badly. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything that you just outlined is really partly due, in a significant way, due to China. So when you mention about aircraft coming in from Tehran, Iran, right, into Caracas, Venezuela, which has been going on for a long, long time. Okay. And there's also other places it goes into. It goes into Quito, Ecuador, okay? Because that's another part of the world, and it also goes into Peru, and it goes into Colombia, but principally into Quito, Ecuador, and into Caracas, Venezuela. So that's just the Iranian connection. And remember, the Iranians have said, they have said specifically, they are going to find a way to basically get back at the United States of America for the kinds of things that we have done over in that part of the world, right? Over the disastrous Afghan and Iraqi wars. Okay, they are disastrous, and nobody can say, "Oh no, these were great victories," right? And we did things to that part of the world and to those people. In some cases, rightly so for specific tactical reasons. But when you think about strategy, you think about the direction that the world is taking. We're now on our heels, and we're on our heels in a big way because we have a person in the White House that, and for my First Amendment right, I have every right to be able to say, I don't believe that our 2020 election was a good election. I think there was a lot of fraud. I mean, we can have a whole other conversation about that, but I just think that we have people in our administration right now that are intent on allowing our country to be purposely destroyed, because otherwise it's either that or I'll eat my words and say they are incompetent. But I know these people and they're not incompetent. No, and so you have to say, why are they doing this? Why are we totally distracted? Because right now, what are they talking about? What's the big ticket item right now? It's cluster munitions. Cluster munitions. And now, instead of cluster munitions being something that has been totally outlawed by over 100 countries on the planet, now I'm not talking about third world banana republics. I'm talking about nation states on this planet that have outlawed them, to include the United States of America. We've been against the use of cluster munitions for a long time. Here I am talking about it because they're getting ready to be introduced over to Eastern Europe into that war. And what just happened in the White House? Well, we just learned that they were able to miraculously conduct an investigation in 24 hours, and nobody's snorting cocaine, in the White House, Oval Office, right? I mean, it's so insane. And all of this, and we've had hearings about Christopher Wray and Attorney General Garland and all these other things that we're talking about in Washington, D.C., that deal with things that frankly don't matter to the American people. What matters to the American people, and I always say this, what matters most to the American people, and it's a bit of a metaphor, is what's 50 feet from their door.
Yep.
Okay? And metaphorically, what's 50 feet from my door is whether or not I can get to work on time, whether or not my kids are going to be safe in their neighborhoods, whether or not my kids are going to be safe in their schools, whether or not I can afford a gallon of gas or a loaf of bread. I mean, it's the basics, right? It's the basics. It's the whole thing about local. And I keep going back to the idea of local action. But the war of distractions is very real. Everything that you laid out, and there's so much more to that. When we talk about flights of people coming from overseas into Venezuela, which is a very easy country to get into because it's crooked, corrupt, run by a dictatorship, and they hate this country. They hate America. So they're gonna allow themselves to be leveraged, and I guarantee there's a lot of money changing hands there, either with the drug cartels up in Mexico, back with the dictatorship in Venezuela, and also with the relationships between China, between Russia, between Iran, and being able to say, okay, let's figure out how we can not just toy with the United States, how we can destroy it. And when you have the potential, when there is potential for inside of our government, because I think this is the other part about this, because I do want to address sort of why. I wrote a note down here to myself, why, but when you start to think about the infiltration into the institutions of the United States of America, and those institutions are our federal government. So, and I mean this, infiltration, right? That means by bad people with nefarious intent. So into our U.S. government institutions, and that's all the institutions, all the agencies, activities, departments, commissions, whatever, to include inside the executive branch, inside the judiciary, inside the legislative branch, every element of our U.S. Government. The other institutions are our banking institutions, right? Who owns them? Who controls them? The other institutions is clearly our school systems and our education system. So this is not something that just all of a sudden happened because Joe Biden came in. This has been going on for a long, long time. And one of the things that you do when you want to destroy a nation, okay, when you want to destroy a nation, in my past, in our planning of taking over little island nations or taking over an Iraq or something like that, you go after the telecommunications system, so you shut it down or you own it. You go after the leaders, you kill them or capture them, and then you take over sort of their capital, and now you expand out and you take the country over. Well, in the United States of America, that's impossible to do. So
kinetic warfare it's different now. We don't need to fire a bullet. That's kinetic. We're now switching to 5G warfare, and we're going to get into that. You're spot on. Infiltration is very key, and I think this has been going on for over 60 years. There has been a plan, and this as well as I do, General Flynn. I've worked in DC. You've been up in DC, and this notion that even like the Secret Service for the White House, the most secure building in the world, that they don't know who was snorting cocaine and brought that cocaine in. Again, that's distractions. And then you've got infiltrators, which we call the deep state. That's who the deep state is, these players. And how they infiltrated the ship.
The infiltrators I'm talking about are actually spies. Actually people that are brought into this country and raised in this country and bought and paid for by other countries. Wow, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Is that distracting?
I think about the movie Salt. You think about the movie Salt, and Hollywood always has some kind of reality and story play. And this is real stuff. Most Americans, honestly, the laymen, most Americans, they can't wrap their head around this. They're like, oh my God, it's so outrageous, but it happens.
Let me jump in and answer why. Why is it that we, because you say, a lot of people have asked me, God, these people they're already in power. They're super wealthy. Why? Well, number one is they want more wealth and they want more power. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the United States of America, and all of our goodness, because we still have a lot of goodness, like why does a country like China have its eyes set on the United States of America? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, China has about 1.5 billion people, and China does not have the natural resources that the United States of America has. So wars have begun over things like water. The three principal resources on the planet that are constantly under competition are food, water, and energy. I'll say that again. It's food, water, and energy. And that's why you hear all this crazy talk about synthetic foods being developed. There's no need to do that. I mean, the greatness of the United States is we actually have the energy resources. We have the ability to have just wonderful, wonderful farming lands, because we have beautiful farming lands across this country. And we have some of the best water sources, fresh water sources on the planet. That's why you see every so often you see like fresh water sources being tainted, like the train wreck up in Ohio as an example. But we have the Great Lakes in the north are one of the largest freshwater sources on the planet. But we also have an abundance of freshwater sources all over this country. So just the great abundance of what the United States offers. And frankly, when you're a country like China and you don't have that kind of abundance, and you're looking at expansion, and you're looking at a century, this century where the Chinese government wants to be and plans on being the global superpower. In order to be the global superpower, that means that they don't want somebody that's a close second. They don't want like a United States that's a close second. They want a United States that's basically crushed. That government that's running out of Washington, D.C. is kowtowing to the Chinese leadership. And they're working hard on that. I mean, you see all of our leaders going over there recently, and they're all bowing to them. The key guys don't meet with the key people, our key diplomats. I mean, this is insane. What we now know about the Biden crime family. I mean, these are These are real things. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are real things.
Yeah.
And so why? It's because America has this abundance of capabilities, of resources. And we do have a population that is a hardworking population that they will enslave if they could. And, anybody that says, China, like they do, like Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum says, this country, China, is a great country. These people are a slave state. It is a dictatorship. And the Chinese hate it when I say that. And they're paying very close attention to this show because
what's interesting that you just said too, and I want to really reiterate this because I know you understand this clearly, and I do want to shift and really talk a lot about China, because I believe that they're the most imminent threat facing the sovereignty of this nation. Players don't move. Citizens of China do not freely move inside or outside of the country of China. So this notion that you've got these Chinese nationals coming through the borders, northern and southern border, by the way, that they're escaping somehow and wanting to be absorbed and seeking asylum, that couldn't be further from the truth, because China has sent them purposefully here for a purpose. You look at even the farmland. Let's go back to 2019 really quick, and I really want to touch on this because it's about resources. And I don't know why this was not put on every single news organization out there, but you had 125,000 acres in Texas near the border, near critical infrastructure and military installations, buying up agricultural property. Well, on that particular property, that farmer did sell that property, but it got reversed because we raided that property. On that property was found Chinese military, Chinese weapons, Jeeps. This was a training ground internally back in 2019, just for China. How many more across this country and on the southern borders have they set up these type of camps? They're wanting to strategically go and be near sensitive infrastructures here in the United States. First and foremost, we need to not allow that. Two, China's future and the growing presence in Central and South America, the Panama Canal, which is a great trade route. They are strategically placing themselves in a surrounding circle around the United States, whether it's the Caribbean, Canada, or in Central and South America, to control not only, I believe, trade and supply routes, but also from a military perspective to be able to invade. Now they're pushing their internal army, which we already know we're already seeing where they've uncovered these private military police stations, right? So China is a huge growing threat.
Yeah. So that what you just said about 2019 and that camp, and these are things that are known. This is stuff that's known. Nobody wants to talk about it. The governor of Texas should be ashamed of himself, to be honest with you. And there's a couple of other places, particularly there's other real estate around the country that has been bought up by the Chinese government, and we should be stopping that everywhere. I mean the Sears Tower in Chicago, the very famous Waldorf Astoria in New York. We've got property here in Florida that the Chinese have bought up, and and all of a sudden governors go, oh, wait a second, the Chinese are buying property. Hey, come on, there should be conditions that we have for the purchase of real estate by competing ideologies that are really our adversaries. In one of the things that I got abused in the media for a variety of reasons, but I said in the 2015, 2016 timeframe that there were signs, because I was talking to people at that time. So I had just come out of the military in the latter part of 2014, and I had worked with federal, state, local, tribal law enforcement. And so I said that in the 2015, 2016 timeframe, there were reports of signs coming up some of the various lines of traffic, the lines of communications that the infiltrators, that the invaders, the southern invaders were coming along. And these signs were in Arabic, okay? And in specific areas. And the media just attacked me to be, I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist, and they got all of their minions in the various even the Arabic newscasters, right? Those newscasters that are now working for mainstream media, and I know some of them. I've been in shows with some of them that would come out and say, Flynn's out of his mind, basically. it's very real. This stuff is very real.
Mhm.
And when I said that, I didn't say that because I was making it up. I said it because I knew it for a fact. And so when you say something like, you're part of an organization that has gone up and down multiple times that border, and have gone inside and gone outside and done the investigative work that our country should be doing. Many in our federal government, in the Homeland Security Department, CBP and ICE, and I mean our frontline folks along the county and the counties along the border. I mean, their hands are tied. Their hands are tied. And when the previous administration under Trump comes in and he's putting up a wall, it's not just to stop the invaders; it's also to stop the whole idea of this invasion and how it crushes our healthcare system, our education system, our law enforcement system. I mean, this amount of people, we don't really even know how many illegals have invaded our country in the last 2 years. People are making up wild numbers. The numbers definitely are in the millions just in the last 2 years. But I can tell you, going back to 2002, because in 2002, I took over a command on the border. It was at Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
In the southern part of Arizona. And for those couple of years, we were involved in training. We worked very closely with the Tucson sector, and we had problems. I mean, I lived on the base. We had illegals crossing the border at that time, and the numbers were staggering. This is 2002.
Well,
So
General Flynn, if you look at a county like Kinney County, I'm going to pick this county out because Sheriff Brad Coe is a dear friend of mine. And so I was down there with him and doing some operations just recently. And when you look at Kinney County, small county, not even on the border, he gets upwards of over 225 gotaways per day. Think about that. And that's what's caught on the camera systems that we have in place. Now, when you strategically look at the data and the information, like which we've done, I've looked at the data, I've looked at the information from California all the way to, quite frankly, Florida. People also forget we have an eastern and western border, and we also have a northern border. And I think when we've compiled all of the data that we are able to look at, we've estimated, quite frankly, between the 15 to 18 million. I know that's a big gap, but that's what we can estimate since Biden took office. And this is very serious implications of our national and domestic security threat. And, then you couple it with Iran, China, Russia, down there in Nicaragua, who's bringing in military equipment and supposedly training, we're being surrounded, quite frankly, by our enemies and we're going to be undermined very, very soon, I believe. And so I really want to shift. I'm going to have you back on because I think that this has just been an incredible conversation. But I do want to talk about not only China, but also fifth generation warfare, is more kinetic and things like that. So we're shifting from a kinetic warfare into more of a virtual type situation, psych ops, propaganda. There's a lot of things. They're specifically targeting audiences. There's education. There's psychological action that they're driving, and they've really attacked our youth. And basically, turning neighbor against neighbor. There's a lot of things that go involved in fifth generation warfare. And so I really want you to talk about the psychological operations because, quite frankly, the CIA, which maybe another subject we could talk about the CIA and their influence, I believe, with the transnational criminal organizations and how I believe still they don't operate without directive from our own personal CIA, but that's another whole program. But how we have used these type of psychological operations, in some ways, fifth generation warfare to topple third world countries. And so I'd like you to talk to America in a layman's term, 5G warfare, what to look for and how to combat this and identify what it is.
Yeah. So for people, a psychological operation is meant to convey specific pieces of information to influence your emotions, to get you to think and understand something that it generally and can be very emotional. So it's specifically done. So you, Christie, me, Mike Flynn, we will be targeted. Groups of people, individuals will be targeted. When you're going to do a deception operation, for example, on the battlefield, you have to really specifically define your target, and we call it in the 5GW book, we call it the target audience. And so you can be, again, we want to, on the battlefield, you might target the leader, the enemy leader, right? The enemy force leader, and you're going to make him think something is true to deceive him into placing resources somewhere where he would not rather place them and where we want him to place them, so we can sneak around the back and get him from behind, kind of thing, right? Well, the bigger strategic component of psychological operations, in order to target a larger group of people, it takes more time, but it also takes the resources, frankly, of the media. So if the media is bought up like they are bought up, I mean, there's no doubt, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. So that's why the rise of people like this show, other fiercely independent podcasters out there who are not only talking the talk but walking the walk as you have done. This is how we beat them, because there is a massive psychological operation going on, and it's happening to us as a nation. And one of the things, when you want to destroy a nation, okay, when there's all kinds of things written about destroying a nation. What are the steps to destroying a nation? One of the very first steps to take is to pervert the culture. Okay, and that's 7 steps to collapsing a nation. You have to pervert the culture, and there's other bigger steps that then have to be taken after that. But in order to pervert the culture, you have to have a message that's constant and repeated, and there has to be elements of some elements of truth, but enough elements of distraction and lies and deception and misleading information. So when we talk about the combination of irregular warfare, we talk about the combination of unrestricted warfare. What does the word unrestricted mean? It means you're going to do anything you can to win, right? So if in some ideologies, which include some religions, you are authorized to lie if it will achieve your objective. Okay, you are allowed to lie to achieve your objective, and if that achieves your objective, then it gets to where you want to be. So this idea of perverting our culture, it really does start with our education system. And I hate to just kind of go back to, well, what's happening in our schools is what's causing all of our problems, because it's much more than that today. But where does it begin? And so when I stand and talk to people or look at people, I look at generations of Americans, and I say to generations of Americans, like my generation, you're a generation below me. You're probably young enough to be my daughter. So you're in a generation below me. As much as you're doing to protect this country and to save this country and to raise the voices of Americans, it's really my generation of citizens that have allowed that have basically been apathetic and lazy. And I don't mind telling everybody that. My generation has been apathetic and been lazy and has just said, well, those politicians are all corrupt, but we keep voting them in this country. It's a constitutional republic. We don't get involved in our political process. We allow a political process and a political system, and we're a constitutional republic. We're a democracy, but we're a constitutional republic, and we've allowed our political process and system, and we own every single paper clip, every pen, every piece of paper, every machine, everything. We own the entire process, taxpayers, and we've allowed ourselves to just let somebody else do it. And those people that do step up and have been getting involved, great, I applaud you. But now it's like every single American better start waking up to this issue and paying attention, because if we don't, we have about another, whatever the number of months are, 13, 14 months maybe before November of 2024. And I've said this, and I know Colonel McGregor said it on, I think it was the Rogan show the other day, about we may not even have a 2024 election.
Yeah.
Because everything that you said, and this idea that they might create something, they being, again, the administration dangled by the globalists who are really running them, and I include Barack Obama in that.
Absolutely. Well, he said he wanted to be a third term in the basement. That's exactly what he's doing.
Some crazy thing. I mean, why did we just do a call up of 3,000 reservists, right? I mean, now you really have to start to look at, first of all, I want everybody to read that letter that was signed by the White House, okay? And because it gives some flexibility to the Secretary of Defense to do more if he needs to, right?
Mhm.
It's, 3,000 doesn't seem like a big number when we're talking about an Army and a Navy and a Marine Corps and an Air Force of a couple million people in the active National Guard and Reserve. So why that number? What are the capabilities? And they're all, of course, heading over to the European theater of operations. So why that? And you when you really dig into the why and who they are, you're going to start to see this incremental, incremental sort of dance of America going into World War III here, folks.
Mhm.
Okay, and we also have the cluster munitions discussion. So all that said, this is how you do it. You do it by perverting the nation, by distracting us from what is really going on, which is what we've been talking about the whole time inside of our country. And if they're able to do the kinds of things inside of our country that they're doing and getting away with it, and nobody's talking about it except for a few, strong leader voices out there, then everybody in America is going to go, oh my God, we have a problem in Ukraine, and why should we? I can't stand here, and I'm a guy that pays attention to everything. I can't stand here and tell your audience what the objectives are for the United States of America. What are the national security, vital national interest objectives for the United States of America to be in Ukraine?
Well, you know what they are, General Flynn, and you know this as well as I do. Money laundering. It is the biggest money laundering. It's part of the military. That's how they do it. It's money laundering, and it's a cover up. And you're right. We have actually in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not going to get into locations that we know where they've been deployed to, but we've had United States Air Force and intelligence being deployed into countries in Asia. Currently, right now, in the last several weeks, we are building up and we are expecting something to happen. And then you look at the future of China, what they're doing right now from their naval perspective, overseas national security, and with the Taiwanian relations. They are going to invade. And this is that jockeying, like you're talking about, going into, I believe, which is going to be Third World War. And I call it the nuclear option, because they know that they can never, ever have a Donald J. Trump in the White House again. And so they don't think that they're going to be able to control and keep control. So they have to have a plan in place. And one of the things that has been really frustrating to me, and I really want to talk to you about this in the last 7-8 minutes, a couple things. One, I want to know, if you were the president of the United States, how would you do things a little bit different? Two, leading up to 2024, and I agree. I've said it for over a year. I don't believe there's going to be a 24 election because numerous reasons. And so how do we stop this? Because we're constantly playing on defense instead of offense, and you can never win wars unless you're on the offensive. You have to be ahead of the game, and they've always been 5 steps ahead of us. And I believe it's complex. We work in silos. We don't collaborate. Leaders don't come. I mean, there's just so much stuff, funding, all of those things. So what can we do, General Flynn? How do we prepare?
Yeah. So, number one, so if POTUS, right, the very first thing to do is really twofold. Number one, tell the American people that we are going to lead again. Okay, we, the United States of America, are going to lead again. And then tell the rest of the world to let them know that we are going to lead again, and do not mess with us right now. We know we got issues inside of this country. They are going to be fixed, and they are going to be fixed very quickly, rapidly, overnight in some cases. And we are going to take care of what's inside of our home. But woe betide anybody overseas that thinks that they're going to take advantage of a transition of a government to a much stronger leader. Because the one thing that's in the DNA of every single American is something called freedom. And freedom has a strength all of its own. That's number one. And I think that message has got to be very powerful. It has got to be very loud. It's got to be very determined, and it's got to be, it has to come from the heart, and it has to be very authentic. And believe me, that's it. That's the message right there. And then you get to work, right? Then you turn and you get to work. The other thing is sort of how to stop this. So right now, every one of us has to, and I use the phrase local action has a national impact.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of us right now has to decide that our purpose in life must be different. The destiny of our country, the destiny of your community, the destiny of your county, the destiny of your church is going to be decided upon. What it will be determined by whatever you decide to do from this day forward. That's the here and now. Going forward, again, assuming victory, right? And we shouldn't like fight for victory. We should stand on victory and then fight from there, right? And so I think that the assumption that we are victorious, then what we have to do is we have to start to really make sure that the leadership that we have in our country is bold, courageous, fiercely independent, has a path, sort of rule of law, constitutionalism, understands what they can do, has to have really, really broad, but also a tightly networked means of communication with the actual president of the United States, because the president of the United States has extraordinary authority to be able to make big decisions that can shape, even in 4 years, can shape the entire culture, not only of the United States of America, but the world. So when you start to think about what institutions need to be shut down, what institutions need to be reformed, who needs to be let go, which people in the deep state need to be told, thank you for your service, right? I'm reaching out like Joe Biden, right? Which way do I go? I'm reaching out and I'm saying, thank you for your service. Time for you to go home, and let them go. We have allowed the federal government to overreach into the we the people level of America in a disastrous way. That has got to end, and it has to end. And literally overnight, when I say overnight, I'm not talking about over 4 years. There are things that a president of the United States, when they talk about the 100-day plan, you could do things in 30 days. In 30 days. But you have to go in knowing the kinds of things that frankly, from my standpoint, that's why they attack me constantly, because they know that there are things that you can specifically do. And last thing, because I know we're going to run short on time here. I want people to understand that the House GOP, so when we're all going, and listen to all these sound bites, and we hear some of these members of the House on social media and short clips and on Fox News or on the weekend shows, on the Sunday talk shows, and they're talking about how this, that, they're going to do nothing. Okay. They do not have the leadership. They do not have the gut. They don't have the courage inside of the Republican House of Representatives. Now there's some good ones in there. And
they know just how to do hearings.
And there's some brave ones in there who will really come forward and they'll call them out. But the leadership matters, and the leadership does not have the leadership to be able to coalesce, to be able to hold people accountable the way the American people needs to hold them accountable. So what I'm telling America is that don't hold your breath and wait on the cavalry to come, because you're the cavalry. Okay, you're looking at in terms of Christie, for your audience, you're looking at somebody in Christie who is like at the, riding that horse into battle every day. And basically, looking back going, man, it doesn't look like there's that many troops, but I'm still going, And I know that over the time that we've known each other, you have gathered a larger and larger body of men and women who are with you. And I think that it's people like you, women fighting for America, right? I think, because I do believe that that one of the big solvers of our problems, one of the big problem solvers for America going forward, and I've said this a lot, is I do believe that that's going to come from women. I think it's going to come from women. There's a lot that men can do, and much, much more that men should do. But I think actually, and a lot of it had to do with when the federal government really went after children, and we started to realize just how much they're trying to pervert the culture of our children. Then all of a sudden, you get these very strong women standing up going, this is crazy. I'm not going to allow this. I'm going to protect, right? The protecting
Nurture.
the protective shield that a woman will have for her child, right? And there's a reason for that. So, and that's a good thing. It's a very good, and it's a healthy thing for America. And so I think that that's going to be one of the big solutions for our country, like it or not. Now that's sort of a sort of a ball thrown over the transom to the men to say, hey guys, let's figure this out, right? Because
Well, then I'll tell you, I've been asked all the time, where's the men? Where's the men at the border for 2.5, 3 years now? And you know what? They're coming, but with this women's movement, they've just demasculized men in America.
Right.
It's time for really strong men to rise up. I would love to have a clean sweep of the whole entire system in DC. We just need to replace the government. And I hope if we do happen to have a 24 election, and if the American people stand up, we can. But it takes unification, it takes guts, it takes the will, and it takes drive for freedom to continue to ring here in America. And I'm hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. The spirit of America will not die. The flame of liberty will not go out as long as we, the people, understand that we're more than them and we can fight together. We're going to have you on. I need a part 2 with you. Hopefully, I'm going to look at your schedule. This has to continue, but we are out of time today. I'm going to ask you if before you cut off, I would like for you to stand by. I'd like to have a private word with you, if that's okay, sir.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm going to do one more plug for Patriot Mobile because I am such a huge fan. I've gotten to know Glenn Story, the CEO of Patriot Mobile, and I'm just telling you that I believe in it. I don't get a dime from it. I wish I did, but it's a great capability. And this is the kind of stuff when we talk about finding other outlets to spend our money. Let's shut these woke corporations down.
Look at Bud Light. Look at the impact.
Right.
So
anyway,
the power's in the hands of the people.
WFFA, right? WFFA, I think, right? That's your
that is correct.
Yeah, help Christie out and help our country out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Your wisdom. God bless you. Thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you, America. On the Front Lines with Christie Hutcherson. We'll see you next Sunday, 1 to 2 p.m. every single Sunday. Brighty on TV. Big shout out to them. Go to Brighty on Store, WFFA, Patriot Switch. Also, satphone123.com, satphone123.com. Again, promo code WFFA. God bless you guys. And until next Sunday, God bless the United States of America.